Welcome to the 13th episode of Genealogy Pep Talk, a podcast. My name is Suzanne, and I'm a library specialist with Arapahoe Libraries here in Colorado. I have two other staff members with me who are my fellow co-hosts of this podcast. There is Cindy, a library specialist, and Katie, a career services librarian. Well, Katie's not here after a while. Hi, ladies.
Hi, lady.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, lady. So this podcast is about gathering some tips and tricks for your family search journey for whenever you get stuck on searching for an ancestor, because it does happen. We also share with you some experiences of our own, along with anecdotes and stories in researching our own families. So I don't know about you, Cindy, but I'm a little bored today. So let's talk about jumping ship in Louisiana, hiding in academia, and being sold to a nunnery for some booze. Doesn't that sound fun?
I think it sounds awesome.
It's either a new movie with Brad Pitt or a genealogy story. We have a special guest star today, Jordan, who is an assistant supervisor at one of our branches. She is going to tell us all about the nunnery. Hi, Jordan.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, we are ready for this movie. Pass the popcorn, please. So, Cindy, Katie, and I were talking one day because Katie said that she had spoken with Jordan, and Jordan had a very interesting family story, or several family stories, it looks like. And so we thought, we should get her for the podcast and have her chat about it. But I don't know if chat about it is the right word. Chat sounds like a small chat. This is going to be maybe a long discussion of the adventures in Jordan's family. So
yeah, and there are many adventures.
Yeah, they sure are. So let's kind of start at the beginning.
So my family history starts with my great-grandfather, CP, and that stands for Charles Pasquale, redacted last name. He came over from Sorrento, Italy. Honestly, I thought it was 1910, but it's actually way earlier than that. It was like 1890 when I did some genealogy research. And he was a ship laborer who, according to my father, fell in love with the captain's daughter, and they jumped ship in New Orleans. And
Both of them?
Both of them, supposedly.
Wow.
I've done some research finding out more things for this podcast.
Good. Nice.
Now, is that true? We think it is. We know my grandmother and my great-grandma and great-grandfather were on the 1910 census. And we know they were there, and they were naturalized, and they spoke English at the time.
Okay.
Don't you love the census? It actually says, do you speak English?
Yeah.
What country are you from? And all that, because that really helps.
Yeah.
It does. And so CP had 13 kids with my great-grandmother, Nuncia. And my grandfather, Robert Bernard, redacted last name, he was the youngest. And so CP was this big businessman in Monroe, Louisiana, after they left New Orleans, which my dad said they left after the Italian hangings in New Orleans, which is this big incident where people said the Italians killed a government official, and so they fled to Monroe after that.
Wow, that's some history. I didn't know that.
I had never heard of that, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's some historical event. I don't know the specifics about it. I just know my dad talked about it. But from there, they ended up in Monroe, Louisiana, which is called the Twin Cities. It's West Monroe and Monroe. And West Monroe and Monroe had, how do I say this? Not good favorable conditions for Italian people at the time. And my great-grandfather opened a bar. And then my grandfather hid in college, Van Wilder style, for ages.
A Van Wilder style. And who you're referring to?
Those Van Wilder college movies. He just stayed in school forever trying to
So that's totally, I don't know. I only know Revenge of the Nerds part 1, 2, 3, 400. From when I was in school. So that's a new movie for me. I'll have to check that out. We're talking about the Italian lynchings. 1891 New Orleans lynchings were the murders of 11 Italian Americans and Italian immigrants in New Orleans by a mob for their alleged role in the murder of police chief David Hennessy after some of them had been acquitted at trial. It was the largest single mass lynching in American history. That's something.
Never have heard of that. So that is pretty amazing to find out facts like that.
Yeah.
That was not in our history school books.
No, it was not. So is that a New Orleans or a Louisiana history thing, or?
I mean, I was never taught it. I was never taught about it. I'm sure some people were in the South. But we were...
Because you're from Louisiana.
I was born in Louisiana and raised in Mississippi. So I got Mississippi history classes.
Okay. Okay.
But I wouldn't be surprised if you're in high school in Louisiana, they taught you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go back to great-grandfather Roberto. So he, how did he jump ship? Just to say, hey, let's go over the edge, lady. And I mean, that's a big risk. And
It's a
that's
big risk.
Chance.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was doing the genealogy, trying to figure out exactly how he entered the country. Because I was like, this sounds too crazy to be real.
Right.
And it looked like Ancestry.com in the library edition of it all told me like all these different entry points he had into the country. And I'm like, how did he enter the country? So my family has always told me he jumped ship and that he didn't want to go back to Sorrento and that he had fallen in love with the ship captain's daughter, Nuncia. And that's all I know. But apparently all I know is that he was already in the country by 1910.
Okay. Because is it for real, or is it one of those famous urban dinner table legends that you have in families, and it's a little snippet and then it gets really blown out of proportion by the end of the...
Yeah. I don't know. I know he claimed it. My grandfather claimed it.
Okay.
So that's all I got for you ladies.
Okay. We need to do a little detective work. Get our hats on.
Sometimes family lore can be true, not very often. I'm assuming that they were also hiding from the ship captain.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right, Big Daddy. Yeah.
Big Daddy was not happy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's something I've never even questioned because I just grew up hearing it.
So you cannot find any naturalization records for
Nothing before
them?
the census in 1910, as far as I've done the digging.
Wow.
And like my great aunt did genealogy and had like everybody's birth and wedding and everything. And even her paper documents from the 80s say he jumped ship.
Wow.
Yeah,
So-
and it kind of seems like it might be if there are no paper trails.
No paper trails.
And somehow, I think you could get into the country just by kind of sneaking around the backs of the officials. I'm sure that it did happen.
Yeah.
Or bribery even,
Right.
you know? Yeah.
See, it does sound like a Brad Pitt movie or something, right?
Kind of does. Except a little bit more swarthy and like debonair.
Yeah.
So, and then your great-grandmother was the ship's captain.
Yes.
Ship captain's daughter.
Allegedly.
And allegedly. What did she do? Did they live on the ship?
From what I understand, she was originally a seamstress.
Okay.
And that's all I know about her, really. But I learned something interesting doing digging while I was getting ready for this podcast, and that she died in an insane asylum.
I'm going to write this down. Insane asylum.
Yeah.
What's that about? I mean, your movie is getting bigger and bigger here.
I know. It's, I found the document from the newspaper article on Ancestry that she had died in a sanitarium in Monroe, Louisiana called St. Francis Hospital for the Mentally Unwell.
Wow.
13
And
kids.
13
might do
kids.
it.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually really good you said that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because my dad said, look up what age the youngest kid was when she died. And it would have been within like a year of the last birth.
Oh.
So I wonder if it was postpartum depression,
Yeah.
and they didn't know what was going on.
They
I'm
never
exhausted.
acknowledged it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get depressed.
Yeah.
And so they probably thought she's not a fit mom. You
Yeah.
know? So that could very well be.
And she was, from what I remember, I don't have the paper in front of me, but I think she was like 43 or 44 when she died. The article I found from the newspaper clipping said that she had died after long-term illness after attempts to extend her life.
Extend?
Yeah. So it's like it sounds so vague, and
Yeah.
you have to remember these are Italian Catholics. So I wonder if that maybe they didn't want to say something darker happened.
Right. Well, that's very interesting.
That's
Wow.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can find some of those documents, because the
Yeah.
class we took, remember,
Yeah.
the professors talked about that they do have records from some of those mental institutions. So you might be
Yeah.
able to find something.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea, because I have the newspaper clipping, but I don't have anything else. But I could look into that.
We're
Well,
gonna do
look
some
up
research here.
Yeah, because remember, Suzanne and I did take a genealogy class together, and we did a lot of digging in a lot of different elements and varieties of records. One of them, the person who had died, they didn't say how they died or where they died. They just said so-and-so died at, 1300 Broadway Avenue. Well, at 1300 Broadway Avenue happened to be the address of the asylum. So get the address of the asylum as well, because they may not say that on her obit or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good to know.
And it's those little things that happen like that, and you just don't know. But, my mother's mother also was the youngest of 13 kids.
Yeah.
And, her mother died. My great-great-grandmother died. I can't remember the year because I still don't have the year. But still, my Nana, my great-grandmother, was 9 when she was living with her older sister, who was the oldest. And so that's, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
heavy
sounds like
duty. And a lot of families, as we know, Catholics or otherwise, had a lot of kids, either working on the farm or, working in the city. There's a lot. So there's a lot to that story, and it's hidden. We have to figure that out.
Yeah, I mentioned it to my dad when I found the article, or the newspaper clipping rather. And he was like, "I never heard of this." So it was like a big family, we were asking cousins and no one else knows, and we're just waiting to see if anybody knows anything.
Well, every family has a secret or two.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
And that's not atypical for the time.
yeah.
Because anything that could be construed as shameful was just swept under the rug. And even if you were a child of that, if you were a young child, no one would have ever told you, this is what happened to Mom. We were at where your grandfather was the bartender.
He owned a bar. I actually found legal tender that he had given people coins in return for labor, and he would use those coins for them to drink at his bar. And
Like
so
tokens or something.
Tokens, yeah.
Interesting.
And then he sent all the kids to college,
Wow.
where they were hiding in academia, like you mentioned earlier.
And I see that. I see why you're saying.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the kids all went to college. They went to Loyola or Tulane.
Wow.
And I know, it's like, how'd you send those kids to school on a no questions, not asking
Those
that
colleges
one.
are pretty pricey.
They're very pricey, so I'm kind of like, where'd the bag of money come from?
Right.
But,
Somewhere, somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are no records about that.
Never,
Right.
never. So the kids all went to school. My grandfather graduated. I found his certificate that he passed the bar, and he was Robert Bernard. His dad. It's confusing. There's so many Roberts in my family. It's like Anthony. It's a name.
Right.
But Robert Bernard Sr., my grandfather, graduated from Tulane with his law degree, and ended up practicing like general litigation. And the story of how he married my grandmother is interesting because her name was Mamie, my Gigi. And
What does Gigi mean? What's that? Just a nickname?
just a
Like
nickname.
Nana?
Like Nana, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just like Southern, you have Mimi, Gigi, you
Right.
know.
So
Oh.
cute.
It is cute.
Very
like
darling.
watching Big Bang Theory with Meemaw.
Meemaw, yeah. It's like Meemaw, my
Right.
Gigi. But my Gigi had been sold to a nunnery as a child. Her mother was a severe alcoholic, and her father, my Gigi's father, had ran off. The nuns came to the house and were like, listen, we'll give you like 2 or 3 bottles of whiskey if you give us the baby.
Wow.
And the
'Cause-
nuns, where did they get the whiskey? Must
Really?
have been
Seriously?
moonshine in the South there.
Well, it was 1930.
Yeah.
So when was Prohibition?
Prohibition did not end until FDR came into office in early 1933. So
Oh, wow.
Prohibition was
Prohibition.
definitely going on then.
So that's why. Wow. Curious again about who were the nuns? What group? What?
It was, oh goodness, I don't know. It was the whatever nuns were in Monroe, Louisiana. Catholic nuns, yeah.
well,
that's all I know.
but are they the Sisterhood of Habda Hibra?
I don't know.
There's probably, the convent may not be there, but maybe you could research
Yeah.
convents
Yeah.
that were around if there were more than one.
I know there was a huge Catholic school there, so maybe I could start my research with
Yeah.
the Catholic school.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely,
I'm
you
sure
could.
they would probably know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe they were, I don't know. Maybe they were doing bathtub gin,
Yeah.
and making their own whiskey, and unless they use it for trade, okay, we'll give you 3 bottles of whiskey
Yeah.
for this,
This beautiful
turkey.
altarpiece or something.
Right, or turkey or food or
Yeah.
something. And then now they have these bottles, and so
Yeah.
and,
It's
so that's kind of
quite
interesting.
plausible.
Yeah, interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
My grandmother, my Gigi, she grew up with the nuns and went to Catholic school. They took care of her. She was going to the law office to do some kind of legal something to become a nun. My grandfather, who was 35 at the time, and she was 18.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
Big difference.
Big difference.
He came downstairs. They met in the stairwell or something. And he's like, you want to get ice cream with me? And she tells the story to me that she was like, well, on one hand, I could have been a nun. On the other hand, I could have married an attorney. So I married the attorney.
With ice cream. I mean, I'm sure ice
Right.
cream
Yeah.
was not always available to, in the
Right.
Depression.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something.
So they went out to ice cream. They got married. They lived a happy life. They were madly in love till the day he died of Parkinson's.
Oh, wow.
And,
And
so
then-
you heard this story through
My grandmother, my Gigi,
your grandma.
yeah.
Did your grandfather ever talk about it?
He passed before I was born.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because he was 55 when my dad was born.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't have kids till she was 35 herself, which is unusual for the time.
Right.
And she tells the story she told the story when I was a kid, that she was on a ladder doing stuff for the flower shop she owned. And she felt something move inside her stomach. And then she got pregnant the next month. And she
Huh.
swears that stretching on the ladder
Oh.
moved something in her body and enabled her to get pregnant.
You never know.
Wow.
You never know.
That's another part of the movie. Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so much of this is that Southern cultural mythology.
Right.
Like, we tell stories in the South,
Yeah,
and it's like, there's truth in all this.
Right.
And like my grandfather, I know he was a lawyer. I found his bar certification. I know he married my grandmother. I know she was going to be a nun because, she told me herself.
Right.
And then, I know my great-grandfather didn't reach the country until he wasn't here till 1910. There's no other evidence of him anywhere. So it's just so interesting, the mythology around
Yeah,
it.
it's very
Yeah.
mystic.
It's
you know?
mystic, yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it'd be a great movie.
I need to get on to this. I need to work on this.
Yeah, well, when the
work on it, yeah.
script writers are back in, I think,
Yeah.
so you can sell it to them. And
I'll work on that.
yeah.
You said they lived in Monroe, and
Monroe.
13 brothers and sisters, parents, everyone was constantly in and out.
Yes, they
So
own...
the kids came home after college.
They did. They
Like
came
you're doing
home
now.
after college, yeah.
Okay.
So they lived at like 1310 or something like that, Milton Street in Monroe, Louisiana. And I only know because we had a picture of the house in our house when I was growing up. And the 13 kids and the parents and the grandkids, everyone lived together. It was like this big Victorian house. Well, I don't know if it was Victorian, but it looked Victorian to me.
Yeah.
Right.
In the painting I had as a child.
Wow.
But everyone was in and out constantly, and they all lived together. And when I grew up in Mississippi, my parents were in the house with me, and it was me, my parents, my great aunt, my Gigi. You know, it was all the neighborhood kids constantly stayed with us. It's a cultural thing. Everyone lived together.
That sounds really nice. Everyone's looking out for everybody else's children and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Must have been a pretty secure, like a security blanket growing up.
Yeah, everyone knew who my family was. They were like, "Oh, that's those people with the 15 people in the house."
Yeah. Yes.
And it was nice. It was good.
Okay, so I just Googled, what I said earlier. I love Uncle Google to figure out some things. And if you have an address, it's sometimes fun to actually Google it to see that address and road and whatever. So it could be the original house just redone or just sitting abandoned, or it could be the building or replaced with a car dealership. So I always mention, see if you about printing out that image, that photo of that house or that ground, that lot, if it's no house or building on there. My mother's, I went back to Long Island, where my mom is from. My folks are from. And I looked, and it was gone. There was like a semi-truck parked on there because they bulldozed the house and so forth. But at least I took a picture, and I'm like, I kind of have that area, It wasn't pretty. It was just like the semi-truck away.
But it
But
gives
at
you
least
a
it's
ground.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's, it's kind of hollowed ground in a way because it is your family and so forth. But so anyway, so I always tell people to do that. Google it. Print out the picture, the image, whatever it is, because that's kind of cool. And then any other older pictures that you can find online, because that's the beauty of the internet.
So my great-grandfather's 1910 census record shows he was born in Italy, in Sorrento, in 1859. His mother was born in Italy. His father was born in Italy. He arrived in the U.S. in 1876 when he was 17 years old with his wife. In 1910, on the census, he spoke English, and that's the first recording of everything is the 1910 census.
So you wonder, where was he between
Right.
1876 and 1910? That's 34 years. That's quite some time.
And the spelling of the last name is all messed up from what we have it is today.
Oh, yeah. A lot of times they didn't know how to read and write, so they
Yeah.
certainly didn't know how to spell their name. They just knew how to say it.
Oh, I see where some of the confusion is coming from. So my great-grandfather and his dad have the exact same name.
Okay.
And they both entered the U.S.
So that
Same
could have been
time.
your great-grandfather,
Great-great.
great-great-grandfather, and they entered the U.S. at the same time?
So it looks like
So it looks like they're traveling together.
they were traveling together, apparently. Or one came first and the other followed shortly after. So it's getting really interesting as I'm Googling as we're talking about this.
sure.
But yeah, it's all Sorrento, Naples, Italy to Monroe, Louisiana. They all ended up in Monroe somehow.
And you wonder why they came there. There must have been some kind of thing.
Well, I
Dun
was
dun
just-
dun.
So Monroe, Louisiana, from what I could figure out, is it was originally called Prairie des Canots, 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 or Prairie of the Canoes. It was renamed in 1819 to honor the arrival of the James Monroe, the first steamboat to ascend the river. And in August and September 1863, the city was the site of 2 minor conflicts during the American Civil War. So that's a little interesting, too.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
And speaking of houses, we did an episode on kind of the genealogy of houses and how houses held the whole life of a family. And sometimes if you can go back there and see it, or the bar or whatever your great-grandfather owned. So we did that in episode 4 on just... So if anyone is listening and they want to go back to that episode and revisit the housing and just the lives and stories that just the homes have, then go back and listen to that one. It's episode 4.
I'll have to go back and listen to that for sure, because now I'm like addicted to genealogy after
yeah.
Like,
how did that happen?
oh no.
And that's what we're doing here. We're trying to get passion and that desire to find out about your family's history through genealogy.
Yeah.
Success.
So you just did a little bit more
I just did a
of
little
research.
digging, yeah.
So why don't you tell us about what you kind of just found out?
Yeah. So my great-grandfather, from what I had been told, I'll just kind of sum it up easy peasy. He had immigrated to the United States from Sorrento, Italy. He had entered illegally, jumping ship with the ship captain's daughter, is the story I'd always been told. Now, what's interesting is his father had the same name as him. So it looks really messy on, like, when you research and see who came first. And it looks like they came at the same time, or they came one right after the other. Because at the 1910 census, which is the first record of them, they're both here. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like, where are you hiding?
Yeah, where have you been for 34 years from
Yeah.
1876 to now to 1910?
Yeah.
So maybe that was purposeful.
Yeah.
They just weren't home when the census people came around or something.
Right.
Until they knew that they were established.
And naturalized, and yeah.
So that could be a huge possibility.
It could be.
So that Italian hangings
Yeah.
was March 14th, 1891. So if he was here in 1877, at how old? Your great-great-grandfather.
My great-great-grandfather?
Yeah,
Let's
how old was
see.
he?
So great-great... First generation is C.P. Guerrero.
So at that point, your great-grandfather was about 17 when he and Nuncia eloped.
Yes.
So they were quite young.
They would be very young. I'm actually looking up some documents my dad sent me, because I have the family tree in them, and I should have printed all this out.
First of all, we love paper, so always print out stuff when you're doing genealogy. Absolutely, because you'll never know if you'll be able to find it again.
So I'm looking at the family record right now, and I can send this to y'all if y'all would like it.
Sure. We'll do research.
Yeah. And it looks like my double great-grandfather arrived in 1884, supposedly, according to my family's genealogy work. And then my great-grandfather, it says here, born March 3rd, 1859 in Sorrento, Italy, deserted a sailing vessel in New Orleans, Louisiana, February 7th, 1877.
Wow.
Married Nuncia Maresca as her maiden name. Yeah, she was on the same ship, and they married in New Orleans July 19th.
Okay, so here's a question, though. What were they on the ship for?
I don't know.
Were
He
they...
was a laborer. It sounds like he was working.
he
and
Sounds
then
like he was
jumped ship.
working,
He was
yeah.
working on the ship.
Yeah, he
Okay, I
didn't.
got
He
that
was.
now.
He didn't.
He had
come
to be
back.
working on the ship, and she must have
Okay.
been just vibing.
She might have. She was with her dad.
Her dad,
gonna
yeah.
go see America
Yeah.
or
Go
something.
see America, yeah.
And she saw America.
Yeah. She had 13 kids in America.
Yes, this she did.
I wanted to mention, like, the South is so big on storytelling and, like, so wildly big on culture and heritage. Like, you have people in Louisiana who are like, I'm French, or I'm Creole, or
Right.
I'm this or that.
Yeah.
And, like, with Italians in the South, it's very culturally, not isolated or anything, nothing like that, but it's like you're proud that you're not just, like, American. You're
Yeah.
Italian-American.
Yeah. I think a
Totally
lot
get
of
that.
Italian, like, go to Boston.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll find it there.
So
But-
I wonder how much of this is just, like, making yourself sound fancy and cool. Like, I know the nunnery story is true, because my grandmother told it to me, and that's her life. But, like, this deserted ship, I'm interested in finding out more.
Well, that just gives you a lot. The thing is, you have a good basis to go on because at least your family talked about all of these things.
Yeah.
And the ones that you have been able to track down have been true.
Yes,
or
they
very
have
close
been.
to it.
Or very
So-
close, yeah.
So the thing about jumping ship, I wouldn't really doubt it. I would.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's very hard to. But you know what? You can maybe look on a passenger list.
Right. Yes.
Oh, that's a good
And a
Ship's
crew
manifest.
list because
Ship's
they
manifest.
Yeah.
if you know the name of the ship, or you can find out. So that you might be able to do that because I think they even list the crew members. I'm not sure. I haven't really. I know they do it for military when I've looked up my great grandfathers and World War One and all that stuff.
Right.
And they do list the crew members, but I assume that they would do that with commercial shipping as well, and that'd be awesome if you could find CP
Yeah.
on that.
You might even see the picture of the ship of what it looked like.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then what am I going to tell you? Print it out.
Print it out. I'm
it
now a printed out gal.
You will never ever
Yeah.
regret
But
doing that.
Yeah. But here's the thing: you have to remember where you put it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What pile you put it in. So did Nuncia ever see her father again? Then
We don't know.
don't know. Okay.
Her side of the family is not mentioned anywhere.
Oh.
It's only my grandfather's side of my great grandfather's
So
side.
maybe
of the
there's a
family.
reason.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to tell my dad that I jumped overboard with a boy.
Yeah.
So I don't want them to find me. So that was the
Well,
end
if
of it.
they're
Maybe it was-
Italian, he may not have. She may not have wanted him to find
Right.
her.
Yeah.
and he may not have been as nice.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Can imagine being the father of a 17-year-old girl and she disappears over
Yeah.
the side of the ship with one of the
Yeah.
help.
Right.
The help,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Unless they think, here's an idea. Unless they think that they both died from exposure in the water.
Oh yeah.
If they jumped over, if they knew, oh my gosh, we're looking for them, we can't find them. They must have jumped. Oh no, they perished.
Yeah.
And maybe they're that's kind of cool too.
That is. They never returned back to New
Right.
Orleans, maybe because
Yeah.
they were sad.
Right.
yeah, and there's no way to track them down.
Yeah.
Really.
Right.
So I'm just gonna sum this up real quick and kind of get back on track here. So CP, Robert Bernard, Robert, my dad, and it's like so convoluted. Just like all these people with the same name. How do you tell them apart, y'all?
Yeah.
Well, we
it's-
have that.
Yeah.
You know, that older generation. 100 years ago, and even less than 100 years ago, they just loved to honor. First, the firstborn was honoring the
Yeah.
mom or the dad.
Yeah,
I mean,
then the
my
second
mother-
born would be the
Yeah.
uncle, and then the third
Right.
born would be, the brother that
Right.
had died or something.
But
they
my
just
mother
did those things.
and my mother's mother both had the same name, first name, middle name, and then of course, the name that the maiden name that my
Yeah.
mother grew up with, and so they just called each other Big and Little.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
Big and Little with their names and so forth.
Cute.
So, but that's the thing, and that's women, so that you can't even put a junior or senior on.
Yeah.
Right.
But then on the other side of that, I've got a bunch of Georges in that, it's about at least 3 of them, and not necessarily junior seniors, and then they throw that at you, so you can't even, it's not even a junior senior or the third.
Yeah, they didn't have
You know?
baby books then, so baby name books. So
Right.
they just
Right.
couldn't really branch out on the names. They just kept naming the same one. And oftentimes, like my grandmother's mother and my grandfather, the person that my grandmother married, his mother, they're both named Anna, and then their moms are named Anna. So they didn't branch too far out in that name thing. So it's very difficult to get. I get mixed up just doing. Oh, that was my grandma's mom, not my grandfather's mom, and they all came from Austria.
Right.
So it gets confusing. It's so easy to get
Here's
confused.
the thing with our generation before and the new generations after us, and I'm looking at Cindy when I say this, is that those names are totally different. There's no problem in trying to find the names of some of these other generations because they're so different, because they want to be different. And so that helps for future genealogists out there, 100 years from now, if there's, I don't know.
It probably will because most people, and just working in the children's area, you hear all these cool little kid names. They're not, Joey or Mark. There was, a little Barrett the other day. I thought that was a cute little name. So they're not named for family members as far as I can figure out.
Yeah.
They want to be very ID specific. So, yes, for
absolutely.
future genealogists out there,
Right.
that's a good thing for you.
Right.
So the names of the original 13 children that my great-grandfather had was CP,
And what does CP mean again?
Charles Pasquale, Lucia.
Wait, I'm trying to write Pasquale.
Oh, no
A
worries.
Q?
Quale.
Got it. Okay. Okay, next.
Lucia. Marguerite. Louisa Madlena. You're about to hate me. Maria Louisa.
Oh, you see?
Henry Edward.
Oh,
They're just
Yeah, they're getting more
running out of
American.
names.
Yeah.
They're running out of Italian names.
Joseph Salvatore.
Well, never mind that theory.
Oh, but wait for the
I'm right
next
back.
one. This one's good. George Washington.
Oh, yeah. I got one in my family.
Corinta.
Okay, you better spell that.
Corinta. Robert Bernardo. With an L? Yeah, with an L. Bernardo.
And is that your grandfather?
Yes, that would be my grandfather. And then Dorothy Elizabeth.
Oh, that's cute.
And that's my great aunt Dot.
Yeah,
Who
they might have
raised-
been called Dot because Dot and Dottie were like a huge thing. Name in those times.
And Dot is who raised my grandfather after Nuncia died. And I never knew why Dot was raising him. But now we know it's an insane asylum.
Now, do you know if all of those children made it to adulthood?
Those are the ones that made it to adulthood.
Oh, okay. So there may have been even more.
The
Oh, so we
May,
got two
yeah.
more. Who are the other two?
Let me see what I missed.
I've got 11.
CP, Lucy, Frank Louis.
Okay, after Lucia?
Yeah, after Lucia, Frank
Okay.
Louis.
Frank Louis.
William Frederick is who we're missing.
Okay, after George?
Yeah.
It sounds like the conversation at the dinner table. Who are we missing?
Right. Announce
Who's
yourself.
not here?
And they all had like these huge families each.
Yeah.
So I can't even get past my dad.
Yeah.
Because there's like, what's interesting, and I grew up experiencing this part, is my dad is the youngest child of the youngest of 13.
Ooh.
So all my cousins are so much older than
Right,
me.
they're almost a generation.
They're a generation older than me. Because I'm 31, I have cousins that are my dad's age. That should be the same as me.
right.
My dad's family, all his cousins are basically gone already because they were so much older.
Yeah.
But what's funny is we have the name Joe is really popular in our family. Mm-hmm. So we have Joe, we have Joe D, we have Uncle Joe D. So we have all these Bernards, Roberts, Joe D's, like these
So when you say
people.
Joe D, is it Joe and then a D or Jody?
Joe period DEE.
Oh, wow.
Two D's.
That's really
Or
interesting.
DE, yeah.
Never heard of that, so that's interesting.
But what's funny is my mom on her Louisiana side is Laura D. is her original name. LORA DE.
Wow, that's pretty.
Yeah, Lordy. Yeah.
Are any of them still around and lucid? Some of the older ones that you could maybe get in touch with and ask, or would they not know? What do you think?
I mean, I don't really know that side of my family, to be honest, because they were so much older.
Yeah.
It's like my dad was an only child. So,
I was like, that's enough.
yeah. My
You've had
my
enough.
grandmother was like, after that ladder incident,
Yeah.
Yeah.
she's like, oh, I got one, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's, yeah, I just don't know that side of my family well. I was raised more with my mom's, country folk Louisiana family.
That is just so fascinating, though, that the stories that are told have come out so far to be true. So I love that story.
Yeah, and it's I honestly came on this podcast expecting y'all to be like, oh nope, all fake news. And I'm like, oh no, it's like looking at my phone, looking at that, I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of panning
and there's
out.
some truth here. Maybe the spellings are different. Maybe the
Yeah.
years are off by a year or two or something. But but yeah. So this will be fun to explore to help you out. So
Thank you.
yeah, I'll be happy to help you because that's my little
I appreciate
passion.
you.
That is
hobby.
Suzanne's niche
Yeah.
in our library system.
Yeah, my niche.
Yes.
Niche from Louisiana. Yeah.
So just kind of to wrap up, you have gotten your information from family lore.
Yeah, family lore.
And some digging you've done, and some digging some other family members have done. So, what do you think is the genealogy part of it for you? Was the impetus of the family stories, or was it just, oh, I want to research my family and see if this is true or whatever?
I think it was the family stories. I was like, I didn't realize how wild it was till Katie asked me to like be on the podcast, and I was like, well, let me look into it, And I told her the little snippet of the story, and I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. This is insane.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to find out what's going on here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's just
I
so
love it.
good that your family was interested enough to pass this down, because this may be going on in other families, but either they're not there anymore, they just decided, I don't want my kids, grandkids, whatever, to know. So this time, it's so wonderful. That is such a gem you've been given.
Yeah.
That
And-
your family has passed this down to you.
And like we say this every couple of episodes, is that bring a recorder with you. There's a bunch of recording apps for free on some of these apps for your phone. So put them on there, set it at the Thanksgiving or some sort of holiday that you're going to when you see your family, and say, okay, I have questions. Talk.
I will work on that.
And then record it, especially the older folks, because you never know when you might not see them again, and you want those memories and so forth. So, well, Jordan, thanks for coming along on this little genealogy trip. We appreciate you giving us some Louisiana lore.
Not a problem. I'm glad to be here. Now I have more digging to do.
Excellent. Because this is a lot of fun. Okay, we'd like to do a disclaimer. The three of us are not certified genealogists. We are just 3 people or 4 people, depending on if Katie's here. We're just sitting around and having a chat about genealogy. We hope that some or all of this information helps you along the way to finding your family. Thanks for listening. Say goodbye, ladies.
Goodbye, ladies.
Goodbye, ladies.
Okay, thanks. We'll see you.